Okay, guys. So, moving ahead, we had wonderful 2 weeks. We had wonderful last 2 weeks wherein we understood what the book of Daniel is telling about through a set of visions, through a set of dreams. So, well, we are here in session three of the exploration of the book of Daniel, and that puts us in front of Daniel chapter 8, which deals with another vision, you know. So this time it's a vision of a ram and a he goat. Am I audible? Anyone quickly?
Yes, Acharya.
Okay, thank you. So what I've understood in the last 5 to 6 years of my learning, in Bible is, Daniel is a very, very strange book. And without the help of Daniel, it is absolutely impossible to understand what Revelation is speaking about. So we do understand that, in Bible, it's a series, it's a story starting from Genesis, which ends in Revelation. It has prophetical sayings, it has eschatological sayings. We need to understand it with the help of Holy Spirit. And while we understand that, I actually, while I was trying to understand these secrets and mysteries in Bible, to unearth these secrets and mysteries of Bible, I understood that without the book of Daniel, it is absolutely impossible. A very, very strange book, a very, very mysterious book. To be honest, 70% of the book of Daniel deals with visions. One of the mysterious books which I've ever read. So before we move ahead, it's just a small recap of what we did in the last two sessions. Daniel 2, we understood Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. It was a multi-metallic dream. On the screens, guys. Uh, the gold was Babylon, silver was Persia, bronze was Greece, and iron too. We deciphered it as Roman Empire. Similarly, in Daniel 7, we saw the same set of dreams being represented in a very different way on the screens. So Babylon was represented by a lion, Persia was through a bear, Greece was represented by a leopard, and Roman Empire, of course, by a strange beast. It was so strange that there was no idiom which Daniel could come to. What kind of a beast it was? It only said it was a terrible, strange beast, mysterious. So let's now move ahead and understand in the precise way what actually Daniel chapter 8 is going to uncover for us, right? So let me just give you a small recap of historical viewpoints too. The book of Daniel has like 12 chapters, of which six are historical in nature. It focuses uniquely on the Gentile world. The second half of the chapter, I mean, first chapter, it's in Hebrew from from 2 to 7. It's written in Aramaic, as we have discussed last time. The second half, 7 to 12, all these chapters are all about visions, majorly about visions. So towards the end of this chapter, after chapter 7, from chapter 8 onwards, the Hebrew language comes into the picture again. Aramaic stops with chapter 7, which helps us to understand that the nation of Israel is put in focus from here on, right? So our focus today noon would be on chapter 8, as you can see on the screen, the ram and the he goat. Let's jump in quickly. I'll just read it. We'll start off from Daniel chapter 8, verse 1. In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, after the one that appeared to me the first time. So when you read this verse closely, guys, you would have a deep understanding that, while this verse was being written, the Babylonian Empire was still ruling on the world. Babylon was still ruling when this was written. The picture of the statue. So this was the time when Nebuchadnezzar had those dreams and all multi-metallic dreams. So you may recall by the way of review that in Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream of a multi-metal image which Daniel interprets. Then in Daniel chapter 7, by the way, in Daniel 2, he was youth. Daniel was a youth. And by the time it comes to Daniel 7, it was later on in Daniel's life. So today noon, we are going to witness a set of dreams which Daniel encounters. The same material, the same metals, the same empires, but this time more focused on the empire 2 and 3. That is what Daniel chapter 8 is all about. So we deciphered that the Empire 2 was Persia and the Empire 3 was Greek. So this time it will be more focused on these two empires. You may often hear me speculating about what is what, but this time, this is one of those places, interestingly enough. Often I put my conjectures here and there, but in this chapter, it's pretty much straightforward on what the dream is all about. Not the least of which, the person who comes and understands and makes Daniel understands this dream is nobody else but Angel Gabriel. Angel Gabriel interprets this dream with precise names. It makes our case easy. Let's move on to the next verse. I saw in the vision, and it so happened, verse 2, I saw in the vision, and it so happened while I was looking that I was in Sushan, the citadel. In some of the verses, it's written Susa, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in the vision that I was by the river Ulai. So if you go in depth of this verse, it's a great debatable topic here. See the verse. So what kind of a vision was it? Was Daniel sleepy and then he dreamed, or was he awake and saw the vision? While I was looking, it so happened while I was looking, I was in Susa, the citadel. That language implies he was awake at this time. At the same time, we are dealing with a city he wouldn't be at. So moments back, I told this was Babylonian Empire at this time when this chapter was written, and he is sitting in Susa. Susa is in the province of Elam. You remember Elam and Persia came together and they together made the Persian Empire. So at the same time, we are dealing with a city he wouldn't be at. This is Susa in the province of Elam. This is the upcoming center of the Persian Empire. That's an interesting thing. So many people think why Bible is using such strange names, Susa and all these things. For example, in Ezekiel, if you go, you can find a place where it is written Gog, from the land of Magog. Quite often, Egypt, it's used Mizraim. Mizraim is used for Egypt. Why such changes of names? The reason is that we make the writers do that. We keep changing the names. For example, in today's world, there's a Russian city, earlier the name was Petrograd. Then it was changed to Petersburg. Then again it was changed to Leningrad. Then again it was changed to Petersburg. We keep on changing names. See, one thing we don't change is the name of ancestors. So that's why sometimes confusions might, arise. So imagine this, this was one such place wherein, he was transported to Susha, the citadel of Susha, right? There are places in Bible which even mentions the names of kings even before they are born on the screens. Imagine this. If you're Isaiah and God calls you to write about the future Persian king and even makes you write the future Persian king's name, King Cyrus, 150 years even before Cyrus was born, how do you talk about it? Persia would be unknown to the readers at that time when this Daniel chapter 8, verse 2 was written. Persia would be totally unknown to the readers at that time. So he speaks about Elam, who are the forebearers of Persians. Let me reiterate that. He speaks about Elam, who will be the forebearers of Persians. Example, Aram. Aram is there, right? Who are the forebearers of Aramic people or the Syrians. Anyways, so it's Susa, Persia. It's kind of tricky because this is being seen at a time when Babylon is still dominant, which is quite even far from Jerusalem. And Susa, later on, when you see Bible, it is the hometown of Esther, where an incredible drama occurs in the book of Esther, King Xerxes, Esther, and the entire drama around Jews' work. And Susa also is a city of Nehemiah, just for your information. Anyways, continue. Daniel chapter 8, verse 3. I lifted my eyes and saw there, standing beside the river, was a ram, which had two horns, and the two horns were high, but one was higher than the other. Interesting. And the higher one came up last. Two horns, he saw in a ram he saw in the vision. It had two big horns, and one horn was higher. Sounds familiar, guys? Can anyone tell me? I'll just open up the forum for a few seconds. Can anyone tell me From where this is echoing?
The 10 horns.
No, I'll tell you. In the interest of time, and the two horns were high, but one was higher, right? That sounds familiar. Remember the bear in Daniel chapter 7? The bear which Daniel saw after lion, the imagery of bear came, and the bear was lifted on one side. He was lifted on one side. We understood that the bear, it was the Persian Empire, which was formed from Medes and the Persians clubbed together. And of these two, Persians were much more powerful. That was being denoted over there, lifted up on one side. The same thing is been shown here too. There was a ram which had two horns, and one of the horns was a bit higher. That was the Persians. Between the Persians and the Medes, Persians were a bit more higher, right? Different idioms, but same reference to the Persian Empire. Let's come to the fourth verse. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward. Interesting. There is no east mentioned here. So that no beast could withstand him, nor was there any that could deliver from his hand. But he did according to his will and became great. That's this one player ram, you know. Notice this fourth verse. There's no east mentioned there. That means this person, this empire has to come from the east. And how precise can Bible be more than this? The Persian Empire was actually in the east, and it actually went pushing towards the west, the north, and the south, more towards the west side. West direction will be the primary focus here of our study today. So who is Daniel talking about here? The upcoming Persian Empire. That's what we are seeing here in this first two, three verses, right? Still Babylon was running, and he was actually seeing the Persian Empire slowly coming up in the picture. Just like the bear, the ram also was coming out, right? Let me give you some historical facts here to back up with this biblical facts. If you go back to history and check, that's why, guys, friends, studying a bit of history is also very useful. Studying a bit of science is useful when you have to understand Bible holistically. So ram, this animal ram, was actually the guardian spirit of the Persian Empire. It was represented as a very big statue with clean feet and sharp pointed horns. And there were instances wherein a 4th century historian has written that the Persian kings often wore a ram's head instead of a crown. Look at this conjecture. Look at how precise Bible is. Aries in zodiac, the zodiac signs Aries, Taurus. Aries in zodiac is also somehow related to Persia. I won't enter into it. It's a whole together a different session. Xerxes, the Persian king, the king during Esther's days. He was quite an unpredictable guy. He made a foray against Europe. You remember how the bear walks. Bear walks slowly. Bear is a formidable force, exactly how the Persians were. Persia was a formidable force, a huge force. So when Xerxes was leading this Persian kingdom against Europe, he made a foray against Europe. That means he attacked the Greeks. A huge army. In the last session, we understood a huge army he carried. And then the Greeks met Xerxes at a place known as Thermopylae. That was a very narrow canyon. And that's the movie 300, this Hollywood movie 300, all about. It has come from this true story. This battle proved to be a U turn as it created a hatred for Persians in every Greek's heart. And that's how Greece started uniting. Persians suffered a huge loss, as history says. And this guy, the king, Xerxes, he went bizarre. Anyways, that was Xerxes. Let's move ahead. Move ahead to Daniel 5, Daniel 8 5. As I was considering on the screens, suddenly a male goat came from the west across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Can anyone tell me what a horn is? We discussed in the last session, just for the sake of the entire crowd. Quickly, what is a horn? Anybody? In the interest of time, yeah.
A king.
Yes, a leader. A horn is represented
Yeah.
by a leader. It's an idiom for a leader or an authority, right? So when you see Daniel 8:5, suddenly a male goat came from the west without touching the ground. What does that mean? In other words, it's moving fast. Now, of course, you understand now. The ram had two horns, this goat had one, referring to a very, very powerful leader who came from west. The direction is also mentioned here. A male goat came from the west. Look at the precision of this lovely book, this Bible, referring to a powerful leader. Now, who is this leader here? Alexander the Great. It implies that he came up so fast and so forcefully that he covered the entire across the whole surface of the earth without touching the ground. He's a phenomenal character, Alexander the Great. It's hard not to throw some statistics around this guy. You know, at the age of 20, at the age of mere 20, he took over from his father, the Philip of Macedon. He was a powerful leader. And within 6 years, let me tell you, he conquered the Persians. Within 6 years, by the time he was 26, he conquered the Persian Empire. Now, that is hard for us to understand how phenomenal it was. Here, there's a giant, the Persian Empire, and this young kid comes up on the scene and conquers them fast. He was quite sharp and quite ruthless too, in one sense. And at the age of 30, within 4 years of conquering Persian Empire, his kingdom stretched from far Europe, from far Western Europe to Middle East to Hindu Kush. That's India. The then known world was captured within few years, just like that, just like how Daniel 8:5 predicted, even without Alexander coming up within the scene, before coming onto the scene. And at age 32, he died. He had a very short career, Alexander the Great. I won't get into it, but let me be honest here. Since he had a very short career, it is very difficult also to research about him a lot. It's difficult to sort through all the folklore and the real stories here. He was quite a character, a primary hero of the world. He left his footprint, imprint, whatever you say, across the world cultures, right? So let's continue with Daniel. In Daniel 6, 8 6, he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing beside the river, and ran at him with furious power. Moments back, I told Xerxes wanted to invade Greek, and that left all the Greeks united against Persians. They were furious against the Persian empires. In other words, the goat takes on a larger, powerful ram with speed. Let me give you a piece of information here. One horned goat, which people can also claim as a unicorn, but it was not a unicorn. One horned goat was also a symbol for Macedonians. Look at the conjecture here. Goat, the Capricorn, is also in the mythology of zodiacs, which also somehow goes back to the Greek culture. Let's move ahead. 8, Daniel 8, verse 7. I saw him confronting the ram. He was moved with rage against him, attacked the ram, and broke his two horns. There was no power left in the ram to withstand him. And he cast him down to the ground and trampled him, and there was no one that could deliver the ram from his hand. In short, the ram or the Persian Empire was left powerless. Strange. The imagery here, which is given in this verse, is quite dramatic. A powerful ram gets defeated by a goat. That helps us to understand when you go back to history and check. The Greeks were very well trained, friends. You know, they were faster moving. Alexander was skilled at rapid movement and quick decisions. Very formidable leader, very formidable force. Eighth was the male goat grew very great, Alexander the Great. But when he became strong, the large horn was broken, and in place of it, four notable ones, came up towards the four winds of heaven. Again, in other words, this notable horn had huge, great success. Here is Alexander who conquered the world in 6 years and dies at 32. Legends say and tales have their own say that when Alexander was on his deathbed, it was asked to whom should the province go. He said, give it to the strong. In any case, It didn't go to only one person. History and Bible both proves that they divided the province and the empire between four prominent leaders. And this echoes from our previous study. Daniel chapter 7, verse 6. He saw another vision. Like a leopard, there was a beast which had on its back four wings of a bird. The beast also had four heads, and dominion was given to it on the screens. This verse of Daniel chapter 8, verse 8 echoes from Daniel chapter 7, verse 6. The imagery is of a leopard here. The imagery is different. In Daniel 7, it was leopard. In Daniel 8, it is a goat. But both move at a formidable speed. And both the leopard has four heads. And here it is shown the great horn broke and four horns came up in its place. Both the images, both the dreams indicate the same concept, different idioms though. It was kind of a, I would say, a reconfirmation to Daniel that Daniel, this is the third dream which is going to come true. I am actually putting a full stop here and saying this is going to be true, Daniel. That was his dream all about. So let's go deep into it and understand who are these four heads, the four notable horns, four leaders. So this was could be a stretched JPEG, but this is the image of the Greek Empire, right from the Western Europe till India. So this was what Alexander had captured. So this got divided between his four friends, four generals: Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy. I'm sure you would have read about these characters in history books. So Cassander handled Macedonia and Greece. Lysimachus was majorly towards Asia Minor, Thrace, etc. And by the way, Asia Minor could be referring to also some parts of Turkey, for your information. But the real big guys, but the real formidable guys here were Seleucus and Ptolemy. Seleucus had the entire Middle East, Syria, up to India, and Ptolemy had Egypt and parts of North Africa, and of course the parts of Israel. These powers divided a great wealth and richness between them. And obviously, between those powers was always crushed on the screens our lovely Israel. It was always crushed between all these powers. So understand what's done here. Alexander dies as per a prophecy, even written even before Alexander's birth. Alexander dies, and four generals divide up the empire. Daniel sees all this in a dream. Wow, that's known as the power of God. Let's move ahead. Daniel chapter 8, verse 9 to 10. Out of one of them, ninth verse, okay, now here the story changes, guys. It gets more interesting here. Out of one of them came a little horn. What is a little horn? A formidable, a man or a leader or an authority, which grew exceedingly great towards the south, towards the east, and towards the glorious land. Now, sometimes I feel very strange. Daniel's entire book is shrouded in a mystery of few little horns. One little horn was mentioned in Daniel chapter 7, which came up out of the 10 horns. Now, here in Daniel chapter 8, one more little horn comes. We'll see who this is. 10th verse. It grew up to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and some of the stars to the ground and trampled them. This is a key here, guys, and be very careful. All those who are taking points, notes, be very careful when I for the next 5 to 10 minutes. Be careful here. Out of one of them came a little horn. Now, can somebody tell me out of what? What is that out of one of them? Out of one of them came a little horn. Quickly, what is that out of one of them? Anybody? I'll wait for a few more seconds.
Little horn depicts like the antichrist, but in the 10 horns, out of the 10 horns, he replaced the last three horns to come out. So I don't know how it is relevant to this portion. I think something like that.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm sure thanks, Sushant. I'm sure all of you will be confused here. We understood very clearly the little horn which comes out from the 10 horns in chapter 7. That's the Antichrist. We understood. Now, again, Daniel chapter 8 says, out of one of them came a little horn, right? So, this can add to the confusions if Holy Spirit is actually not leading you. So, this is not what Daniel chapter 7 is telling. Now, few verses back, we understood Alexander was there, one horn was broken. In that place, four horns came. This is the continuation of it. Out of one of them means out of the four notable horns, the four generals, came a little horn. So this is very different from Daniel's little horn. I'll explain that. Give me just 5 minutes. I'll explain that quite simply to you. So don't confuse this little horn with the little horn of Daniel 7. The little horn in Daniel 7 comes up during the period of 10 horns. Remember the metal images of 10 foot, 10 toes, iron plus clay. It was same imagery in Daniel chapter 7 too. Out of 10 horns, the little horn comes. But this little horn in chapter 8 is emerging out of the four horns here. Who are the four horns? Lysimachus, Cassander, Ptolemy, and Seleucus, Alexander's four generals. This is Alexander's in chapter. I told you moments back when I started off this chapter. I'll be precise here. This is Alexander's kingdom being talked about. The Romans came later. You with me? So towards the south and the east, I'll repeat, towards the south and towards the east and towards the glorious land. In some of the verses, it is written towards the pleasant land. This little horn moves. Now, who is this? And what is this glorious land? It's an idiom for Israel. Whoever is this, he doesn't like Israel. It's very clearly mentioned towards the east, towards the south, and towards the glorious land. This guy will attack and it will wax it up. And this horn, in the 10th verse, it grew up to the host of heaven, means this horn waxed great against even the Most High. Who is this? Who is this guy? Now, this is where you can interpret things very wrongly. Most of the people can go wrong if you're not led properly. The person we are talking about here is an echo of somebody who will come in the end. Let me be precise here on the screens. The person whom we are talking about here is Antiochus the Fourth, who comes up out of the four. Let me explain that to you. You saw the Seleucid Empire, the Seleucus and Ptolemy. Seleucus had, right from Middle East to far Middle East to India and all. It was captured. From that empire, there were many kings which came up. The fourth king which came out of that was Antiochus the Fourth, out of the successors of the kings. So there are two basic reasons. There are two basic reasons for the little horn in Daniel 8 to be Antiochus the Fourth. First, he is described here very vividly in a way that he takes things out against Israel. Secondly, secondly, he sets the stage for some identities that are yet future. I'll repeat. Secondly, he sets the stage for some identities. I'm telling you about the final Antichrist that are yet future. This guy, Antiochus, the little horn in Daniel 8, echoes the future little horn in Daniel 7. It's one of those cases where there is a double identity here. Let me explain that. Let me pause on that, in fact, so that we don't miss the point. See, what happens is in many places across Bible, you see there are idioms or there are strange depictions being maintained. There are echoes which happens. Let me pose out as an example on the screens, guys. When we get to Isaiah, a certain chapter, 14th chapter to be precise, we get a passage here where we talk about the king of Tyre. Where is Tyre? Tyre. The Tyre is a place. Tyre is Lebanon, in fact. The king of Tyre. He was a shroud king. He was a haughty king. He was powerful. He was wealthy. He trampled people. All he did, right? So in chapter 14 of Isaiah, I would encourage you to read Isaiah. The the king of Tyre has been mentioned formidably over there, right? But while the passage mentions about the king of Tyre, suddenly there's a shift in the passage. Let me read that. Now, this is, I've mentioned the shift precisely here. So, king, you're strong, king was bad, okay, all this done. But suddenly, in the 12th verse, how you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. Really? You have been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. You said in your heart, on the screens, 13th verse, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mountain of assembly on the utmost heights of Mount Zaphon. I will ascend above the tops of the cloud. I will make myself like the Most High. Strange shift in the word, strange shift in the language. Isaiah, what is happening here is Isaiah goes beyond the king of Tyre and talks about the power behind the king. That is exactly 12 to 17th verse. You know whom this verse is referring to? The power behind the king. I'll show you with one more proof. In Ezekiel, on the screens, guys. Ezekiel chapter 28. Here again, in Ezekiel 28, the king of Babylon has been talked about. He was a hardcore king, he was a bad king, he wanted to be on the high, all good, all fast, all nice. Let's read it on the screens. You were the seal of perfection. Okay, fine. Any king can be resembled by that. Full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Fine, no doubts. But then to see the next line, you were in Eden. Really? Was the king of Babylon in Eden? The garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering. The sardius, the topaz and diamond, beryl, onyx and jasper, sapphire, and emerald with gold. The workmanship of your timbrels and pipes was prepared for you on the day you were created, till wickedness was found in you. What on earth is happening here? Why is there is a sudden gear change in Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28? They were speaking about the kings of Tyre and speaking about the kings of Babylon. I'll tell you. It clearly tells about Satan, the power behind these kings. You have to recognize the scope of the shift of this dialogue. The same shift happens in Ezekiel. What happened in Isaiah? Same shift happens in Ezekiel 28, where he's talking about the king of Babylon. Then he talks about, you were in the Garden of Eden. King of Babylon and Eden? No ways. The language goes vastly beyond the scope of the mere king of Tyre and Babylon and talks about the power behind them. These verses give us an insight or an echo into Satan's origin, career, and ambitions. The evil kings, what you find, whoever you find on earth, they've been powered by Satan. So you need to realize this, that this happens in the scripture too. While we talk about a particular person's in idioms. So let's go back to Daniel. So Antiochus the fourth is such a person, an evil king. He is not only listed here as an historical king in Daniel 8, but also for an important reason. He is going to set the stage for Bible to give us some insights on the final world leader, commonly known as the Antichrist. It's believed widely with reasons that Antiochus Epiphanes, mentioned as the little horn of Daniel 8, is just an echo of the end days Antichrist to come to. The little horn in Daniel 8, which comes up within the four horns of Daniel 8, is an echo to the little horn which comes up within the 10 horns in Daniel 7. With me, guys? I hope no more confusions are there. I'll just repeat the last sentence. The little horn in Daniel chapter 8, which comes up out of the four horns, is an echo of the little horn which comes up within the 10 horns in Daniel 7. Antiochus is an echo. The character of Antiochus is an echo. The deeds of Antiochus becomes an echo, and the over holistic view of Antiochus becomes an echo of the final world leader. What Antiochus did, this guy, the final world leader, also will do the same things. I will tell you what all he will do. You can actually find about this guy Antiochus the fourth in the book of Maccabees, which is sadly omitted from our Bible. We have only 66 books, but when you dig deep, the book of Maccabees, Maccabees 1, Maccabees 2 is included, I think, in Catholic Bibles too. But if I would encourage you to read that real history. It's a useful historical book. I'll tell you what exactly happened there. While the Roman Empire completely captured the Middle East, Israel was crushed, and Antiochus Epiphanes comes. You remember I told you Roman Empire enjoyed crushing, monuments, crushing the societies. They enjoyed doing it. While Antiochus actually came to Jerusalem, the second temple of worship, first temple was by Solomon, second temple from the time of Cyrus it came. So second temple was already there, and Holy of Holies was already established. The temple worship was happening. Everything was happening properly there. Antiochus comes up over there in the scene. He abolishes the worship. He abolishes all the sacrifices, and in place of the Holy of Holies, he erected. He erected. You know what? We had a session on this. He erected not only his statue, but the statue of Zeus. Just imagine. And he abolished the daily sacrifices, and in place of that, he forced Jews to sacrifice pigs. Pigs were slaughtered on the holy altars. He was a bad news to the entire nation of Israel. And he called himself Antiochus Epiphanes. Epiphanes is a term which means illustrious. So he wanted everybody to call him Antiochus the illustrious one. That sounds crazy, and that sounds, that is another echo. Let's move ahead. Let's say this. He even exalted, on the screen's 11th verse, he even exalted himself. See, Antiochus Epiphanes, Antiochus the illustrious. He even exalted himself as high as the Prince of Hosts, and by him, the daily sacrifices were taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. So when this happened, when he took away the sacrifice, when pigs were slaughtered on the holy altar, and when he erected the statue of Zeus over there was one family which came out. It was Mattathias. Mattathias stood alone. Nobody was with him. His sons and his family alone was with him. And because he was standing for the truth, you know what happened? The entire nation slowly came together and started revolting against, with this guy on the front scene, they started revolting against the Romans, and they removed the Roman Empire from there. And then they reinstalled the Holy of Holies back, and that is known as Hanukkah. That is the festival of dedication. That is known as Hanukkah. That if you can read in the Maccabees, you can understand. And even in, if I believe, in New Testament, in John, it is mentioned the festival of dedication. The temple is rededicated. That's how this Maccabean revolution comes. Anyways, moving ahead. So Daniel 8, 11, 12, the fact that Antiochus plunders any place may not mean much to readers. Look carefully here. This guy is messing around with God here and is doing it royally. A total mess against God's ordained rituals. And what does it say? And by him, 11th verse, the daily sacrifices were taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Uh-oh. The daily sacrifice was taken away. This information would be needed in the later stages. So Antiochus is a bad news. He takes over the temple, abolishes the daily holy sacrifice, and starts pig sacrifice and the sacrifice of unclean animals, and puts idols everywhere in the temple of Jehovah. Boy, boy, he didn't knew what he was up against. In other words, he ensures that the abomination of desolations stands inside the temple. Shortly, he is forcing all the Jews to make themselves abominable or disgusting. Abomination means disgusting. He is forcing all the Jews there to be disgusting and abominable by sacrificing pigs, so that and continue with that, so that they forget the laws given by God and change all their ordinances. He was outlawing Judaism there. Remember, there was a verse we dealt with last time in Revelation. He will change the times and the laws. Antiochus is an echo of the final world ruler. Let's move ahead. Interesting things to come. Let's move ahead. Now, this is a very peculiar verse. I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to that certain one who was speaking, "How long will the vision be concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, the giving of both sanctuary and the host to be trampled underfoot?" 14th is a very peculiar verse. He said to me, "For 2,300 days, then the sanctuary shall be cleaned." 2,300? See, we dealt with few timelines: 42 months in Revelation, 1,260 days in Daniel chapter 12. 1000, oh sorry, 3.5 years, time times and half a time, 3.5 years, right? In Daniel chapter 7, right? But this is strange. What is 2300 year? This is a subject to all kinds of interpretations. Let me be honest, I don't have a particular answer to this, but let me try my best. I have two theories here. The actual Hebrew here is, you see, for 2300 days, that's written in pure English. The actual Hebrew here is 2300 Erev Tovs and Boker Tovs. For all those who understand this, it's easy. For all those who don't understand this, Erev Tov means evenings and Boker Tovs means morning. It's mentioned 2300 evenings and mornings. What on earth is this 2300? Let me tell you something. There's a long history of date setters of all shapes and sizes and all kinds of groups, and obviously they all are wrong. Every once in a while we can see a script that that it's such a such day, and somebody's got a whole new calculation every time. Fun to watch all the guys behind this going wrong sometimes. Some say it's 2300 years, some says it's 2300 days, but if we take this 2300 days as literal 24 hours here, then we have a strange possibility that comes boils down to some 2300 years. If you calculate and change it into years, so sorry, 2300 hours, if you change to years, it comes to close to 6 to 7 years. So when you see Antiochus here, he does all the atrocities in 170 BC and dies somewhere around 164 BC. But the trouble is that we don't have a precise date. That also comes somewhere around 6.5 years. So let me say that nothing fits precisely here. That's why this is interesting, and I take this with a pinch of salt. Doesn't mean that it's not true, but we don't have a precise answer. So as I told, the rededication of temple happened during the Maccabees time, and the Holy of Holy was installed over there. If you say John chapter 10 verses 22, the festival of dedication is mentioned over there. So there's another theory which comes up. Remember I said 2300 is mentioned as Erev Tovs and Boker Tov. That means 2300 evenings and days, which makes it, to be precise, 1150 literal days. So some people suspect that this may be operative here, because we are going to hear something about Antiochus which will echo towards the end times. This boils down to the 3.5 years. I'm not so sure about it. Now it's an interesting subject of topic. With me, guys? Let's move ahead. Can somebody read this? Daniel 8:15 to 17.
It happened when I, Daniel, had seen the vision and was seeking the meaning, that suddenly there stood before me one having the appearance of a man. I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai, who called and said, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. He came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell on my face. But he said to me, Understand, Son of Man, that the vision refers to the time of the end.
Thank you. So let's see what Gabriel has to say here. He's clearly saying, this vision is catering towards the end times. Notice something interesting here. The reason, the real purpose of the vision is not ram and goat. The purpose of this vision is to have some insight on the character of Antiochus the fourth, not necessarily the one that is immediately in view, but the one that is a foreshadow of him. Can you please read this also? 18:19.
As he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep with my face to the ground. But he touched me and stood me upright. He said, Look, I am making known to you what shall happen in the latter time of the indignation, for at the appointed time the end shall be.
This too. So when you see from verse 19, just hold on for a minute. When you see from verse 19, the eschatological time starts from here. It's end times from here. Yeah, please go ahead.
The ram which you saw Having the two horns, they are the kings of Media and Persia. The male goat is the kingdom of Greece. The large horn that is between its eyes is the first king. As for the broken horn and the four that stood up in its place, four kingdoms shall arise out of that nation, but not with its power.
As I told when I started off the session, I'll be very precise with things now. There were conjectures. This can be Media, this can be Persia, this can be Greece. But now Angel Gabriel comes here and says directly, the ram which you saw having two horns, they are the kings of Media and Persia. How more direct can be this? The male god is the kingdom of Greece. The large horn that is between, who's the king of Greece? Alexander. And the large horn that is between its eyes is the first king. That is Alexander. How precise historically this Bible is. And as for the broken horn and the four that stood up in its place, four kings shall come out of the nation. The four heads of the leopard, the four horns that came up in front of, in place of that little horn, right? And the 23rd verse says, in the later time of their kingdom on the screens, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, a king shall arise, having fierce features, who understands sinister schemes. It's exactly that we observed, the 23rd verse. It's a wow verse. I see some strange things here. I see a sudden shift of gears, in fact. I see later times here when transgressions will be full, will come to the full. When the transgressors have reached their fullness, what does that mean? When sin is full, a king of fierce countenance will rise. Let me tell you something here. That's one of the 30 plus titles that's used in the entire Bible about Antichrist. He is also mentioned as a blasphemous person, the little horn, and whatnot. And one such feature is he will have a fierce countenance. He will have fierce features. He shall be mighty. The little horn will rise mighty, but not by his own power. Who is powering him? Satan. So Daniel 8:24, when you see, I've not mentioned it here, he will destroy the people. If you can read it, he will destroy the saints. He will destroy the kingdom of God. I mean, the kingdom which is there against nation, against Israel also he'll work. So when you see this carefully, this dream, all about this dream, a ram is coming. A ram is there with two horns. Persia, goat comes, Greece comes, destroys the ram, destroys Persian Empire, and after that, Alexander comes into the picture. When Alexander dies, his four generals comes into the picture. When the four generals, out of the four generals, Daniel chapter 8, that 8th verse says, out of the four, one little horn comes out. And that little horn is Antiochus Epiphanes, who actually goes against Israel like no other king, who actually abolishes the sacrifice and starts pig sacrifices. And he puts up a big statue of Zeus inside the temple, which becomes the abomination of desolation, which even Jesus mentions in the New Testament. Jesus mentions this. I don't have the verse on the screen. Jesus mentions this. Remember what Daniel has told. My coming also will be like that. When you see the abomination of desolation standing in the temple, you will understand that I am going to come back. What was Jesus talking about? Antiochus is long gone. Antiochus is long gone. Jesus is talking about the little horn of Daniel 7, which will echo what Antiochus did. So there are certain characteristics of this guy. When you see the world moving towards certain things, which I will discuss today, understand, guys, understand, friends, that the time is nearing. I will tell you what exactly those times are. So this guy is coming. He's coming, guys. There is a great tribulation coming. Study your Bible and be careful to understand these times. Even Jesus tells about these times, I think in Matthew chapter 24. So when you see there will be last 7 years, And in the 7 years, the second 3.5 years, that second 3.5 years is known as, which we, the three times and a times, 42 months. That time is what we call as a tribulation time. Its purpose is to drive Israel to the war. Let me show you some important things. Before Israel, once Israel gets to the war, I find this verse completely applicable here. Then I will go back to my people, my place, until they admit their guilt, and they will seek my face in their misery. They will earnestly seek me. There is a strange verse which I've encountered always, which we have discussed in the last few sessions. In the whole land, on the screens, Zechariah 13:8, in the whole land declares the Lord, two-thirds will be struck down and perish, yet one-third will be left in it. I'm not so sure, but this is my conjecture here. You know what Holocaust is? The Nazi regime under Hitler, they killed almost one-third of the Jews. That's the Holocaust. I won't enter into the definition and the thing. That's known as Holocaust. That was the first one. I personally believe, I can be wrong here, but when I say this is a later time verse, Zechariah 13:8. I personally believe there are there are tough times coming up, especially for Israel. The Nazis, the Nazi Germany took 1 out of 3 Jews. And when you see this verse, 2 out of 3 Jews are gonna be taken up. 2 out of 3 Jews will be killed. Tough stuff, tough stuff, tough times coming up. Anyways, moving ahead. Can you read this verse also, Feba?
Daniel chapter 8, verse 25. Through his cunning he shall cause deceit to prosper under his roof. He shall exalt himself in his heart. He shall destroy many in their prosperity. He shall even rise against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without human means.
Thank you. He is cunning. He will magnify himself. And let me tell you, we had a session last time when we understood that by peace he shall destroy many. He's not going to be a military leader mostly. He seems like a peacemaker, but he becomes very powerful. He stands up against Christ. He replaces Christ and he says, Christ is no more there. I am there. And that's why he becomes the antichrist. But he'll be broken and killed supernaturally. Let me just concentrate on a few things here. Through his cunning, he shall cause deceit to prosper under his rule. Can you see this verse on the right? So that no one can sell or buy until he has the mark of the beast or the number of his name. Through his cunning, he shall deceit and prosper. The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies. See, one such character of this guy is, I told you last time, no? Mr. Big Mouth. A world leader is gonna come up who will speak blasphemy, who will utter blasphemies. He will be a super big mouth. Look at those characters in that person. You will understand, who the Antichrist could be. There are certain characters mentioned across the Bible. We'll have a session again on Antichrist. We'll do that session. But as of now, understand these characters. He's cunning, and he shall magnify himself. By peace, he shall destroy many. So we had a session on Revelation 6 too, where we saw the rider on the white horse. There are 4 horses in Revelation 6: black horse, white horse, black horse, uh, red horse, and a pale horse. Sometimes it's also mentioned as a green horse, right? So most interpreters could go wrong here. The rider on the white horse is not Christ, it's the Antichrist. The rider on the white horse has caused confusion among many commentators. When you observe this revelation properly, and when you mix that with Daniel's chapter 8 and even Daniel chapter 7, you'll understand that this guy will come up in the most deceiving way. He shall say peace, 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 and after that he will cut everybody to pieces. So these are some on the screens. These are some characteristics. He will be crafty. He will magnify himself. By peace he will destroy. On the screens, he will be against Christ. He will gain power by weakening others. The sixth and one of the most important points, he will promise false security. I'll tell you about this in the later sessions. He will be intelligent, no doubts, and he'll be persuasive. He'll be controlled by Satan. And there is one guy I'm telling you, whichever world leader goes completely against Israel with all such characteristics, you can gun down on that person. I'm not telling right now, maybe in the upcoming years. And let me tell you something, guys. Don't waste your time seeing YouTube videos on, the YouTube videos are full of junk materials. They come up openly and say that even Narendra Modi can be antichrist. Obama is antichrist. We don't know who is antichrist. So don't waste your time on all that. Go back to Bible. Ask the Holy Spirit on guidance. Last time we understood how the antichrist from Daniel chapter 7, there will be a formation which happens, an end time formation. Maybe some countries would come together, and out of that 10 horns will come, and within that 11th will come. We don't know yet which formation. We don't know who are those 10 which will come up. How can we know the 11th horn? How can we know who the antichrist is? So I'm giving a session here to avoid a time waste. You don't go to YouTube videos and check. Go back to Bible with the help of Holy Spirit. Maybe you can decipher this out with me. By the way, we are finishing up. So it's Daniel 8, 26 and 27. The vision of the evenings and mornings on the screen, which was told, is what? Is true. Who is saying this? Angel Gabriel. Therefore seal up the vision, for it refers to many days in the future. I, Daniel, fainted and was sick for days. Afterward, I arose and went up to the king's business. I was astonished by the vision, but nobody understood it. So there you go. There's Daniel in front of you. A heavy plate full for him. So this session, it was the ram and the goat. Precisely, it's mentioned it's Persia and Greece. Persia was defeated by Greece. Alexander comes up on the screen. He dies, and his four generals, the leopard with four heads, the horn breaks, and the four horns comes up. And within that horn, one more small horn comes up, and that is nobody else but Antiochus Epiphanes, who is an echo of the end time ruler. What Antiochus did during those times, he abolished the sacrifice. The Antichrist also will, the final Antichrist also will abolish the sacrifice. He stood in the temple. Antiochus, the end time Antichrist also will do the same thing. He will put up the statue, and no, he will put up. Antiochus actually put up a statue of Zeus, and there was an abomination of desolation which happened. This is exactly what Jesus also told in the end times. Remember what Daniel said: the end time ruler also will come up. And let me tell you, let me point out you something very important here. The third temple is not here yet. The moment you see the third temple on the scene, tell me, let me tell you, these things will happen very fast. The third temple in Israel has to come up for all these things to come up. So, in short, the summary is the little horn of Daniel 8, Antiochus Epiphanes, is an echo of the little horn in Daniel 7, which comes up out of the 10 horns. That is the final Antichrist. The next session, which will be the last session on Daniel's book and the fourth session on our end time series, we'll be taking up the most amazing passage in the entire Bible for a couple of reasons. It is the most important bulletproof apologetic to demonstrate the deity of Jesus Christ. To demonstrate the deity of Jesus Christ. Indeed, Yeshua is the Messiah of Israel, and for us too. Also, Jesus points out to the specific passage to his disciples, who comes out in the end times as the key to all the end time prophecy. So some prophecies are crisp, some are confusing. Confusing because people don't understand things properly. Mostly Daniel 9 is a bit confusing for many. So if you understand Daniel 9, especially the last four verses, everything sort of fits together. That's why it is so crucial to all of us to understand the book of Daniel before we understand what Revelation or Ezekiel or Jeremiah says. A fascinating, staggering book for all of us. So fasten up your seatbelts for next Sunday. There's more coming up. There's more exciting stuff coming up. So all these stuffs are going to impact us in the coming months and years. What you have read right now, 3000 years back when Bible was written, 2000 years back when these 1500 years back when these books were written, they were actually going and claiming one thing. Sherry, what you're going to see in the news channels in 2020 onwards or whatever timeline it is, we are telling it to you right now itself. So a lot of things are going around in the world. Keep an eye on the world. Keep an eye on the news channels. You will be able to figure out what is happening. So before I end, let me just point out this verse, Luke 21:36. But keep on the alert at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that are about to take place and to stand before the Son of Man. If you look at this verse carefully, keep an alert and pray at all times so that you may have strength to escape all these things. There's a way to come out also, and the way to come out is nothing but Christ. The way to come out is nothing but praying to Christ and be alert all the times. So let's be united, guys. Let's not distribute. Let's not get disintegrated. Let's be like-mindedness to increase the body of Christ, the church, not only the church, but also there are many people who don't know such hidden knowledges. Go and spread this so that people, you are exactly like Ezekiel's watchman. You need to bring people onto the scene. You need to bring people back to the scene. You know the enemy is coming. Go back and inform the people. Sometimes you will see yourself standing aloof. When you are a true Christian in your college, in your school, in your offices, in your workplaces, you will stand alone. But let me tell you, behind you, just like how Elisha saw, behind you there are millions of angels. So tell the truth. Don't fear from telling the truth. Pray at all the times so that you can have the strength to escape what is going to happen. So before I end, there's one fact book. There's one fact from Daniel's book. On the screens. 9 out of 12 chapters of Daniel revolve around dreams. A brilliant book. So I end the session with a seal of thank you. Thank you everybody for listening to this. I open the forum for questions and answers. Thank you.